The wind screamed across the frozen wasteland. Snow fell like knives, cutting into the skin of anyone who dared to move outside. The human, Daniel, walked slowly through the storm, his thick coat pulled tight, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. He had been searching for shelter for hours, his body numb, his hands stiff. Then, he saw movement. At first, he thought it was only the wind tossing shadows. But then, through the thick white haze, a small figure stumbled forward. A child, thin, shaking, and covered in rags far too weak for this deadly cold. Her skin was pale blue, glowing faintly under the stormlight. Her eyes, large, alien, and full of fear, looked straight at him. She clutched something in her small hands. No, someone, a body. A woman, twice her size, limp and almost frozen solid. The girl dragged her with desperate strength, her knees sinking into the snow with each step. The human froze in place. His soldier instincts screamed, "Don't get involved. You don't have supplies for them. Walk away," but then the girl cried out. Her voice broke against the storm. "Human, please, my mom is dying from cold. Help her, please." The words cut deeper than the wind. Daniel's chest tightened. He had trained for war, for survival, for combat. But nothing had prepared him for the sight of a child begging in the snow, tears freezing on her cheeks. He looked at the woman she was dragging. The alien mother's lips were blue. Her breathing was shallow, almost gone. Frost covered her hair like white glass. She was seconds away from death. Daniel clenched his jaw. His rations were low. His fire-starting gel was nearly finished. He had barely enough fuel to keep himself alive for another night. If he gave it away, he might not survive. The girl fell to her knees in front of him, still holding her mother's hand. Her little body shook violently in the cold. Her eyes, glowing in the dark, looked up at him. "Please, human, don't let my mom die, please." He could hear her teeth clattering. Her words were broken, but her desperation was clear. The storm howled around them, but her cry was louder in his ears. Daniel's heart pounded. He looked at his own pack. Inside, one last thermal blanket, one last tube of fire gel. Enough for one person, not three. If he used it on the woman, maybe she could live. But then what about himself? What about the girl? He wanted to turn away. He wanted to survive, but he could not move. The child clutched his coat, her fingers icy and weak, gripped as if she would never let go. Daniel took a deep breath, snow stinging his lungs. He pushed away the fear of tomorrow and looked into the girl's glowing eyes. "All right," he muttered. "I'll help." Her eyes widened. Hope flickered in them like the first spark of fire in the dark. Daniel dropped to his knees and lifted the mother into his arms. She was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. Her skin felt like ice against his gloves. He could feel her faint heartbeat, slow and weak. "Stay close," he told the girl. "We need shelter. Now." The child nodded quickly, stumbling beside him as he carried her mother through the storm. Every step was heavy. The snow dragged at his legs, the wind clawed at his face, but he pushed forward. His mind screamed at him, "You're wasting your chance of survival. This isn't your fight." But then he looked at the girl. She was trying so hard not to fall, her tiny hand gripping the corner of his coat. She never let go. He tightened his hold on the woman and pressed forward. Somewhere in the storm, the ruins of an old outpost waited. He remembered seeing its broken roof hours ago. If he could reach it, maybe there was enough shelter to start a fire. The child's voice came again, soft but full of desperate faith. "Thank you, human. Please, don't stop. Please save her." Daniel swallowed hard. He didn't answer. But deep inside he knew one thing. This storm was no longer about his survival alone. It was about saving a mother. It was about protecting a child. It was about proving that a human heart could still burn even in the coldest snow. The storm did not forgive. It howled like a beast biting its skin, cutting through clothing and burying tracks almost as soon as they were made. Daniel pushed forward, his boots sinking deep into the white death beneath him. His breath came in hard bursts, fogging in the freezing air. In his arms, the alien mother lay unmoving, her skin colder than stone. The little girl stumbled beside him, her hands clutching the corner of his coat. The human soldier's body screamed for rest, but he refused to stop. Every step mattered. Every second lost meant the woman might slip away forever. "There," he muttered through clenched teeth. The outline of the broken outpost appeared through the snowstorm. Its roof sagged, walls cracked, and metal beams bent from years of neglect. But to Daniel it was salvation. The child looked up, eyes glowing faintly in the dim stormlight. Can we go inside? Daniel nodded once. If it's still standing, it'll have to do. He shouldered the weight of the alien woman and half-dragged, half-carried her to the doorway. With one solid kick, the rusted door screeched open. A blast of stale air hit his face. Cold, but not as merciless as the storm outside. He stepped in, the girl following quickly, and shut the door with a loud clang. Inside, the place was dark. Snow had leaked through cracks in the roof, piling in corners. The floor was littered with broken crates and rusting metal, but the walls still held. It was shelter. Daniel lowered the woman gently onto the floor. Her lips were nearly white now. Her chest rose and fell in the shallowest rhythm. She's slipping, he whispered. The little girl knelt beside her mother, shaking her shoulders softly. Mama, please wake up. Please don't leave me. Her small voice broke, the words crumbling into sobs. Daniel's jaw tightened. He pulled his pack off his back and dug through it. One thermal blanket, one tube of fire-starting gel, a few dried rations, and his last power cell, barely half-charged. Not enough for long, but enough to fight tonight's battle. He lit a small corner of the outpost using the gel. The fire caught quickly, licking up the broken wood of an old crate. Orange glow spread across the room, shadows dancing against the metal walls. The heat was faint, but compared to the storm outside, it felt like a miracle. Get her close, Daniel ordered. The child obeyed without hesitation. Together, they dragged the woman's body nearer to the flames. Daniel wrapped the thermal blanket around her, tucking it tight. He rubbed her arms, trying to force life back into her frozen veins. Minutes passed. The girl's glowing eyes stayed locked on her mother's face, as if staring hard enough could will her back to life. Finally, a sound escaped the woman's lips. A weak, broken gasp. The girl's head shot up. Mama, she's breathing. Daniel leaned closer. He pressed 2 fingers against the woman's neck. A faint pulse trembled beneath the skin. Weak, but there. She's not gone yet, he said. Relief washed over him, though he didn't let it show. But she needs heat, food, water, and time. The girl wiped her tears with the back of her small hand. Can you save her, human? Daniel looked at the fire, then at the little supplies left in his pack. He swallowed hard. Saving the alien mother meant burning through everything he had. No food for himself. No fire for tomorrow. But when he looked back at the girl shivering, her eyes wide with hope, he knew there was no turning back. I'll try, he said simply. The child crawled closer to him, sitting beside the fire. Her voice was small, but it cut through the crackle of flames. Why are you helping us? Others walked away. They said my mom was weak. They said we should be left to die. Daniel stared at the fire for a long moment before answering. Because I'm not like them. The girl blinked at him, confusion and wonder in her gaze. Slowly, she leaned against him, trembling. Thank you, human. Daniel didn't reply. Instead, he reached into his pack and tore a ration in half. He gave one piece to the girl, keeping the smaller bit for himself. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, but he forced it down. Survival wasn't just about him anymore. Hours passed. The fire crackled, melting frost from the walls. Daniel kept feeding scraps of wood into it, his eyes never leaving the alien mother. Each time her chest rose, no matter how faintly, hope sparked again. Outside, the storm roared, uncaring. But inside, for the first time, warmth existed. Fragile, fading, but alive. Daniel leaned back against the cold wall, exhaustion pulling at his body. The girl's head rested on his arm, her small frame shaking as sleep finally claimed her. Across from him, the alien mother lay wrapped in blankets, her faint breath matching the rhythm of the fire. Daniel closed his eyes, though he knew sleep was dangerous. Tomorrow would be worse. Supplies were almost gone, and yet, as he listened to the child's soft breathing beside him, he knew he had made the right choice. For now, they had hope, and hope was enough to fight the storm. The fire flickered weakly, its glow casting long shadows on the cracked walls. Daniel sat close, rubbing his hands together, trying to push warmth into his bones. The alien mother lay wrapped in the thermal blanket, her skin still pale, her breathing fragile. The little girl sat pressed against her, holding her hand tightly, whispering soft words in a language Daniel did not understand. Her voice trembled, sometimes breaking into sobs. But she never stopped speaking. It was as if her words alone could pull her mother back from the edge of death. Daniel leaned forward, checking her pulse again. It was faint, barely there, but steady enough to spark the tiniest flame of hope. He pulled the blanket tighter around her, rubbing her arms hard to keep the blood flowing. The girl looked up, eyes shining with both fear and trust. She will wake, right, human? Tell me she will wake. Daniel hesitated. He had seen soldiers die with stronger pulses. He had seen Frost claim men in less time, but he couldn't bring himself to tell the child the truth he feared. She's still fighting, he said. His voice was firm, though doubt twisted inside him. Don't give up on her. The girl's lips trembled, but she nodded. She pressed her forehead to her mother's hand, whispering louder now, almost chanting. Minutes dragged into an hour. The firewood was nearly gone. Daniel fed the flames slowly, carefully, each piece measured, each spark precious. Then it happened. The woman's body jolted suddenly as if struck by an unseen force. Her chest heaved, her breath rattled violently. Frost cracked along her skin, flakes breaking away like shards of glass. The girl gasped. Mama! She clutched her mother's shoulders, panic and hope colliding in her voice. Daniel moved fast, lifting the woman slightly, checking her airway. Her body shivered uncontrollably, her lips parting in weak gasps. She was trapped between life and death, and the thin flame was her only anchor. Stay with me, Daniel muttered. He rubbed her back hard, forcing her lungs to keep working. Breathe. Don't stop now. The girl's small hands joined his, shaking her mother gently. Please, Mama, don't leave me. The fire crackled, sparks leaping into the cold air. The warmth spread slowly, wrapping around them like a fragile shield against the storm. Daniel pressed the woman closer to the heat, his own body acting as a barrier against the freezing air. At last, a faint cough escaped her lips. A broken sound, but alive. The girl let out a cry of joy. She's alive. She's alive. Daniel exhaled heavily, tension leaving his chest. He had not realized how tightly he had been holding his breath. Relief hit him like a wave, though he did not let his guard drop. The woman was alive for now. She stirred weakly, her eyes flickering open. They were cloudy, distant, but still full of something unmistakable. Recognition. She saw her daughter first, then the human holding her. The girl sobbed, hugging her mother's arm. Mama, I found him. The human saved you. The woman's lips moved, whispering words too soft to hear. Daniel leaned closer. Her voice was cracked, broken by the cold, but her gratitude was clear in her eyes. Daniel shook his head. Don't thank me yet. You're not safe, not here. Not like this. The girl wiped her tears, but her smile returned, fragile and glowing like the fire. You gave her back to me. That's safe enough. Daniel didn't answer. He looked at the flames instead. The fire was small, too small. Supplies were running out. He had bought them a few more hours, but tomorrow would come fast, and the storm outside showed no sign of mercy. Yet, as he listened to the sound of the alien mother's breathing, weak but steady, something stirred in him. Something he thought war had burned away long ago. Hope for now the fire of life was burning, and Daniel would do everything he could to keep it alive. The storm outside never stopped. It clawed at the outpost walls, rattling the rusted panels like bones in the wind. Inside, the fire burned low, its weak glow barely holding back the shadows. Daniel sat with his back against the wall, rifle across his lap, eyes half closed but never resting. The alien mother slept, wrapped tightly in the thermal blanket. Her breathing had steadied, no longer the desperate gasps of the night before. The little girl sat beside her, keeping one hand locked around her mother's fingers as if letting go would steal her away again. For the first time since the storm began, silence filled the room, but it was not a peaceful silence. Daniel's instincts prickled. Years of surviving war zones had sharpened his senses, and now something felt wrong. Too wrong. He opened his eyes, scanning the shadows. The flicker of the fire stretched them across the cracked walls, twisting them into strange shapes. For a moment he thought it was just his tired mind playing tricks. Then he heard it. A crunch, soft, careful, snow shifting just outside the outpost. Daniel's grip tightened on his rifle. He moved silently, pressing one ear against the cold wall. The sound came again, closer this time. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Someone was out there. The little girl noticed his movement. Human, what's wrong? She whispered, her voice trembling. Quiet, Daniel ordered. He raised a finger to his lips. The girl's glowing eyes widened, fear returning to her face. She hugged her mother tighter, her small body shaking. The footsteps circled the outpost, crunching snow, then stopping suddenly at the door. Daniel raised his rifle, aiming it steady. The firelight glinted off the metal barrel. His heart pounded, but his hands were still. Then, 3 heavy knocks. The girl gasped, almost crying out. Daniel silenced her with a sharp look. Whoever was outside knew they were here. Pretending otherwise was pointless. Who's there? Daniel called, his voice hard. Silence. Then a voice low and rough. Not human. Alien. You should not have saved them. Daniel's chest tightened. His finger rested near the trigger. Show yourself. The door creaked, snow spilling in as it opened. A tall figure stepped inside, cloaked in tattered fabric, its face hidden beneath a hood. The firelight revealed skin faintly glowing the same way the little girl's did, another of her kind. The child's eyes widened in shock. Uncle? She whispered. The figure lowered his hood, revealing sharp features, eyes burning with cold disdain. Child, you were told. The weak must be left to die. That is our way. The girl shook her head fiercely, tears springing to her eyes. No, Mama is not weak. She's alive because of him. She pointed at Daniel, her small hand trembling. The alien man's gaze slid to the human. His lip curled. A human? You let him touch her? You brought shame to us all. Daniel didn't lower his rifle. You were following us, he said flatly. The man smirked. Of course. I wanted to see how far a desperate child would go. And now I see she clings to a stranger. He stepped closer, his boots crunching on the frozen floor. But know this, human, whatever you do, she will not survive long. Weak blood cannot be saved. Daniel stood, shifting to put himself between the man and the sleeping woman. His voice was sharp, steady. She will survive. Because I won't let her die. The alien's eyes narrowed. You would fight me? For her? Daniel's reply was cold as steel. Try me. The fire popped loudly, breaking the silence. For a tense moment, the two men stared at each other, predator and protector. Finally, the alien scoffed, pulling his hood back up. Fool, you burn your strength for nothing. The storm will take you all. He turned and slipped out the door, vanishing into the snow without another word. The girl trembled, rushing to Daniel's side. He is my mother's brother, she whispered. But he left us, he said. We are nothing. Why would he come back now? Daniel lowered his rifle, though his muscles stayed tense. His eyes stayed fixed on the door. Because secrets don't stay buried, he muttered. And I think your family has more of them than you know. The girl looked at him, confusion and fear swirling in her glowing eyes. Outside, the storm roared louder, as if echoing the truth. This was no longer just about survival. Something darker was hunting them. The fire had almost died. Its glow was no more than a trembling ember in the corner of the ruined outpost. Shadows swallowed the walls and the cold crept back in, slow and merciless. Daniel sat close, rubbing his arms, fighting the chill that sank into his bones. The alien mother lay still, her breath weak but steady, wrapped in the fading warmth of the blanket. The little girl sat beside her, wide-eyed, whispering words that wavered between prayer and pleading. Outside, the storm howled as if mocking them. Daniel reached into his pack. His hand brushed the last scraps of rations, barely enough for a single person. 1 strip of dried meat, 1 piece of hard bread. Not nearly enough for 3 lives fighting the storm. He stared at the food for a long moment, his throat tight. The girl's small voice broke the silence. Human, will Mama live? Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked at the mother's pale face, the frost still clinging to her hair. Every breath she took seemed like a battle. He had seen soldiers in this state before. Many never woke. She's still breathing, Daniel said at last. His words were calm, but inside doubt gnawed at him. The girl's eyes, bright and glowing in the dark, filled with desperate hope. Then she can get better. She has to. Daniel clenched his fist around the food. He knew the truth. The woman's body needed fuel, warmth, strength, things he barely had left. If he gave them what remained, there would be nothing for him. His body was already weak, drained from carrying her through the storm. Without food, without energy, he wouldn't last another night. Survival told him to keep it. Instinct told him to eat, but then he looked at the girl. Thin arms, trembling legs, her face pale from hunger and cold. She clung to her mother as if she could shield her from death itself. And yet the child's hope still burned. Daniel closed his eyes. He could almost hear his old commander's voice. Choose the mission, not the emotion. But this wasn't war. Not anymore. This was something else. He opened his hand, staring at the food. Then he slowly broke it into two. He pushed the larger piece toward the girl. Eat, he said firmly. Her eyes widened. But what about you? Daniel forced a small smile. I'll be fine. She hesitated, then shook her head fiercely. No, you need it too. You saved us. You can't eat, Daniel repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. Your mother needs you strong. She can't fight if you give up. The girl's lip trembled. Slowly she took the food, holding it with shaking hands. She looked at him again as if hoping he would change his mind. But Daniel turned away, staring into the dying fire. The child bit into the ration, tears spilling down her cheeks. Between each bite, she pressed pieces into her mother's mouth, helping her swallow tiny amounts. It wasn't much, but it was something. Daniel's stomach twisted painfully as he watched. Hunger clawed at him, but he stayed silent. His sacrifice was hidden behind the firelight. Hours passed. The storm outside still raged, the wind rattling the walls. Inside, the fire finally collapsed into faint embers. Daniel sat against the wall, eyes heavy, body shaking from exhaustion. The girl leaned against him, her head resting on his arm. Her voice was small but steady. Thank you, human, you gave us everything. Daniel said nothing. He only tightened his grip on his rifle, staring at the door where danger had entered before. He knew his strength was fading, but he also knew something else. If anyone tried to take the girl or her mother again, they would face him first, even if it cost him his last breath. The storm outside had softened, but only slightly. Snow still whipped across the frozen ground, whispering like ghosts around the broken outpost. Inside, the last embers of the fire glowed faintly, throwing shadows that danced across the walls. Daniel sat awake, his back stiff, rifle across his knees. The alien mother slept weakly beside the child, who clung to her hand even in dreams. Their breaths were soft, fragile, but alive. For a brief moment, Daniel allowed himself to think they might survive the night. Then came the sound. Boots crunching on snow. More than one. Heavy, deliberate, the rhythm was unmistakable. Soldiers. Daniel's eyes narrowed. He rose silently, moving to the cracked doorway. He peeked through the gap and his stomach turned cold. Shapes moved in the storm. 4. No. 5. Tall armored figures with glowing eyes, weapons slung across their shoulders. They were not scavengers. They were trained, and they were coming straight for the outpost. Daniel's pulse quickened. He slipped back inside, whispering sharply, "Wake up." The little girl stirred, confused, rubbing her eyes. "What's wrong, human?" "We're not alone." Her eyes widened in fear. She shook her mother gently, whispering, "Mama, please, wake up." But the woman barely moved, too weak to rise. The footsteps grew louder. Then the door shuddered under a heavy kick. Dust rained from the ceiling. Daniel raised his rifle, jaw tight. The door burst open and the cold storm poured in. 5 alien soldiers stepped through, their armor dark, their faces sharp and merciless. The leader scanned the room, his gaze landing on the mother and child. "There they are," he said, voice hard. "The weak!" The little girl cried out, clutching her mother tighter. "No, leave her alone." The leader sneered. "Child, your mother was meant to die. That is our law. You disobeyed, and now you bring shame." His eyes shifted to Daniel. "And you, human, you interfere in what is not yours. Do you think your kind can change our ways?" Daniel stepped forward, rifle steady, eyes like stone. "I don't care about your ways." "She lives. Both of them do." The soldiers laughed, a harsh, cold sound. The leader's lip curled. "You dare point a weapon at us alone?" Daniel's voice was calm, but his words cut like ice. "Try me." The room exploded into tension. The soldiers raised their weapons. Daniel gripped his rifle tighter, his muscles coiled like springs. The little girl screamed, "Stop! Please don't hurt him." But her voice was drowned by the storm and the clash of wills inside the outpost. The leader stepped closer, his shadow swallowing the fire's faint glow. "Move aside, human. Give us the child. The mother is already lost." Daniel's finger slid against the trigger. His voice was steel. "If you want them, you go through me." The silence that followed was deafening. Then the leader's eyes narrowed. "So be it." The soldiers moved as one, weapons rising. Daniel's heart pounded, but his stance didn't break. His mind screamed that he was outnumbered, outgunned, and nearly starved. But none of that mattered, because behind him, a child clung to her dying mother, believing in him, and for that belief, he would not back down. "Stay down," Daniel ordered over his shoulder. The girl's sobs broke into whispers. "Please, human, don't die." The first soldier lunged forward. Daniel squeezed the trigger. The blast roared through the room, shaking the walls, drowning out the storm outside. Chaos erupted. Shadows clashed in the firelight, steel against steel, will against will. And through it all, Daniel fought like a man with nothing left to lose. Because in the cold, he had found something worth dying for. Smoke and gunfire choked the broken outpost. The storm outside had quieted, but inside the echoes of battle still rang against the metal walls. Daniel stood in the center, chest heaving, rifle trembling in his tired hands. Around him, 2 alien soldiers lay sprawled on the floor, their armor cracked and smoking. The others had fled, dragging their wounded leader into the snow, leaving only silence behind. The human's arms shook from exhaustion. His vision blurred. Every muscle screamed with pain, but he was still standing. Behind him, the little girl clung to her mother, tears streaking down her face. "Human, you didn't let them take us." Daniel lowered his rifle, setting it carefully on the ground. His knees threatened to buckle, but he forced himself steady. He turned, meeting the child's glowing eyes. "They're gone," he said, his voice rough. "For now." The girl's lip trembled, but she nodded. She hugged her mother tighter. The woman stirred, opening her weak, clouded eyes. Her voice was faint, but it carried weight. "You fought for us?" she whispered. Daniel knelt beside her, his breath ragged. Someone had to. Her hand shook as she reached toward him. He hesitated, then took it gently, feeling the fragile pulse beneath her skin. Her eyes filled with tears, not of weakness, but of something deeper. Gratitude. "You could have left," she whispered. "But you stayed." Daniel looked at the fire's dying embers. Leaving wasn't an option. The little girl leaned against him, her small frame shaking with sobs. "You're our family now, human. Mama says the others will never accept us, but you did." Daniel froze. Family. The word cut deep. He thought of the brothers he had lost in war, of the home that no longer existed for him. And yet here, in the cold, a child was offering him something he thought he would never have again. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then I'll stay, as long as you need me." The girl's sobs turned into soft laughter, weak but real. She hugged him tightly, as if afraid he might disappear. The mother watched, her lips curving into the faintest smile. "Perhaps the storm did not take everything from us." Outside, the wind began to ease. The endless white sky slowly revealed the faint glow of dawn. Light seeped into the cracks of the outpost, washing over the 3 of them like a promise. But Daniel knew the danger wasn't gone. The soldiers would return. The brother who had warned them would not stay silent, and the storm of this world would always fight against them. Still, as he looked at the fragile warmth of the child's smile, he felt something stronger than fear, hope. He rose slowly, gathering what little remained in his pack. He turned to the girl. "We can't stay here. If they come back, we won't survive another fight. We move when your mother is strong enough." The girl nodded quickly, her eyes filled with determination. "I'll help. I'm strong. I'll take care of her too." Daniel gave a small smile. "I know you will." Together they tended to the woman, feeding her tiny pieces of food, wrapping her tighter in the blanket, and sharing the last warmth of the embers. The hours passed, and slowly strength returned to her. By midday, she could sit up, leaning against the wall, her hand never leaving her daughter's. She looked at Daniel with quiet eyes, the stormlight shining faintly across her pale face. "You are no longer just a stranger," she said softly. "You are part of us now. Whatever comes, we face it together." Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked out at the snow, at the endless, merciless world that wanted them gone. But when he turned back, seeing the child clutching his arm and the mother's faint but genuine smile, he finally nodded. Together, he agreed. The storm outside had taken much. It had tried to take lives, hope, even love. But in the ruins of an outpost, a human, an alien mother, and her child had built something the cold could never destroy. A new family,